Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. In this week's episode, I'm joined by Pav Guliani, a good old friend of mine who we did a BTS for filming for, I want to say, like, start of March or so, or around there. And yeah, it was all good. Interesting chat. So enjoy this little interview, and I'll see you at the end. And thank you so much for all the support on the channel lately, guys. And if you are new to this and do not want to miss more weekly podcasts, I release one every single Monday at 6 p.m. Make sure to be subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for listening, and enjoy the interview. And I'll see you very, very soon.
Yeah, so I'm Pav Guliani, and my business is in videography. So I'm a videographer, London based, and been doing it for say about 6 years now. And I think probably 3.5 years actually full time. So I was doing it bit by bit, part time, and then now gone into full time for about 3.5 years. Yeah.
Okay, cool. How did we kind of connect? 'Cause I think that's an interesting story that maybe you can explain it from your side, and then I can kind of jump in and fill in any gaps where there is any. But I think that's an interesting story that because it's kind of a kind of guess like for kind of chance thing more than anything.
So it was through Facebook, I believe. You sent me over a message saying I put up a video. Think it was it in the time lapse group on Facebook?
I'm part of so many I forget exactly which one, but it was something along those lines. It was travel or time lapse or something along those lines. Yeah.
Yeah, one of those ones. And yeah, you just chucked me a message across and said, introduce yourself, and just said, oh, if you ever need someone to shoot some BTS, I'd be up for it. And I was like, yeah, wicked, that's cool. Like I do the same thing sometimes, like it's a good way to connect, to not just say like, oh, hey, I'm who I am and I want this, this, and this out of you. It's like, oh, hey, you're right. I can offer my services to you in terms of like recording some behind the scenes. And I was like, straight away, I was like, okay, that's good. This person is actually wanting to connect by actually offering something, like not just saying like, oh, I want this, this, and this out of you. So straight away, I was like, yeah, good guy. And I think I messaged you back, probably saying, yeah, definitely. If I need someone, and I think possibly maybe within 3 or 4 weeks, I shot you over a message just saying, yeah, I'm going to do a shoot close to my house, and if you could come over. And you actually traveled really far, and I felt really bad about it because it was like, what was it, like an hour and a half for you, 2 hours in total? Coming,
I mean it's like my normal commute to London, which is 90 minutes from me, and then it was across London. So
yeah, because you had to come to North London, so yeah, it was a long one, and yeah, that was really appreciate you coming to do that, and it was a big help to have you there and everything. So, and it was fun shoot, like nice weather and everything. So yeah, and that's how we met, and we've been just messaging each other ever since, really, just to see how we are, how each other is during this time. Make sure we're both all right and everything. So yeah, it's been cool. It's been a good connection.
yeah, definitely. It's funny that you mentioned that because that's what I was gonna talk about was specifically how has COVID specifically kind of allowed you to diversify your business or changed your business, or have you seen a downswing in business? Because I know personally I have. In a span of like a week and a half, I was being basically like fully booked pretty much, to then like delayed or not sure, let's put that on hold, let's put that on hold, that kind of thing, for like 2 weeks straight, and then it was suddenly like nothing. Obviously this was before lockdown, but like it was kind of very abrupt and very quick, in the start of March, or towards the start of March anyway. Did you find something very similar, or was there
Yeah,
sort of,
well,
how was it for
a,
you?
a lot of, I mean, during from about April through to October, I'm really busy with weddings. Wedding is I shoot a lot of them. So yeah, it was literally coming up to I'd pretty much had my kind of, let's say, downtime in terms of the off season of weddings, and I was like, ready to go, gearing up for another long, busy wedding season. And yeah, suddenly it was just like, no, we're cancelling this, we're cancelling that, we're going to postpone to next year. And obviously, then lockdown, no big events going to be happening for a long, long time. So it's like, it's weird now. Like, I can see there not being anything this summer, let's say, in terms of weddings going on. And that will mean it would like be almost like a year, or maybe if we go up back if everything goes back to normal next summer 2021, that will be when I'll get back into it, and it will be 18 months since I like really was consistently shooting stuff, because that is my consistent base of like the work that I do, which is shooting weddings, because I have just loads of them going on. Like I know a lot of people that hire me just to shoot freelance shoot and stuff like that. So it's like literally what during the summer it's like could be 3 a week kind of thing. So just consistent stuff. And I do other things on the side as well, but they're not as frequent. So I think those kind of jobs might come back in, like the corporate jobs which don't involve, let's say, large groups of people. They'll probably come back in first, and then eventually going back to the sort of big live event shooting stuff. But yeah, what about you? Did do you know how many, like, in terms of numbers, how many you lost like straight away, or?
I mean, like for me, I've had because so to give a bit of background on those who don't know, 'cause I don't think I've talked about it much, but the first year of me really operating was really kind of me focusing on local events, event coverage, as you mentioned as well, and then around the second year, I went into more corporate business kind of business content, brand awareness content, that kind of thing. So I'm kind of glad that I did that kind of switch because I kind of got all the connections in the event industry in my local area anyway. And then I was like, okay, well, there's only certain parts of the event season, like May and June and kind of the middle of the summer, kind of like starting to ramp up round about now, and then kind of tailing off in the next couple of months. Like it's only about 3 months long, the event season really, and then there's some bits and bobs around Christmas. But it's for me, it was just weird because I've been doing quite a lot of brand awareness stuff and kind of brand and business stuff more. Like I've seen that as more of a consistent revenue stream for me in the respect of like the content I'm doing and working with motivational speakers and working with businesses and brands and that kind of thing. So for me, it was kind of like I think all that stuff will come back, and I think it'll be as you say, I think it'll be one of the first things that come back, and it's going to be more of one of those things where we still have all those plans in place and there might be a slight budget change, but that's the only thing that I can see actually changing. I think the principle and the want to do it will still be there. It would just might have to renegotiate on some costs or some how to do it logistically so we can do it safely with the new restrictions, whatever they may be.
Hmm. Well, a lot of these
Whether
brands, like you say, they'll probably want obviously photography and video content ASAP, because they'll want to get the word out that things are back to normal, and despite whatever's happened. So yeah, you you did well really to sort of get into that market. And I always it's like really weird and like ironic, because I was always on the thinking that weddings is just something that will just never go away and they'll always be there. And just no, in my wildest dreams that I would think that like a whole season could be wiped out because of a virus. Like it just never even crossed my mind. I was always just like, that's the absolute thing that I'll have, which I enjoy doing because I enjoy shooting weddings, but it will just always be something that will be there as like a consistent moneymaker. And I'll be able to then, if I wanted to spring off of that and go into other directions, let's say in the off season, if I wanted to start doing something else like a course or something, like I could do that in off season, having had like a busy wedding season. But obviously that's just all going up in the air now. So it's like having to sort of rethink really a little bit, maybe just for a year or maybe even longer. I don't know how long this is going to go on for. So.
Mm. So have you, because I think a lot of people, especially if they are running their own business and they are, especially media specifically, a lot of them, I know for me, I've been looking at where are my weaknesses or where were my vulnerabilities from a business perspective. So, it sounds like to me, you kind of putting all your eggs in one basket, so to speak. Would you say that's like was your main quote unquote weakness, and that's something which you're going to, I guess come out of this like as having plans in place and having kind of remedies in that respect?
Yeah, I guess I mean, I wasn't like 100% all in on weddings. It wasn't like my only thing. Like I'm sort of um, having done this for quite a few years. I've built up like a bit of a network of people that I shoot for. Let's say other agencies who need to go and cover like corporate events and stuff, and just other little things here and there like interviews and stuff. But I'd say maybe 70% of the, like, let's say the money I make would be coming from weddings. So yeah, in terms of that, I may have to start thinking about maybe possibly opening up like another arm to what I do in terms of like pretty much similar to what you do, maybe just working with, let's say, small brands or local brands, just to have that that client base that's not like a large event like a wedding. Let's just say like smaller companies who need video and photography work on a consistent basis. Yeah, that could be something that I could start looking into once this has stopped. But yeah, it's just one of those things where even if we do get past this, it'll be like I might then start to think, well, is this ever going to happen again? Like possibly not. I don't know. So should I just stick to what I was doing before and just say like, okay, maybe 1 year's been a bit of a write off, but just carry on as before? I'm not quite sure yet, but yeah, definitely. It was something that I wanted to do anyway to try and get into more like corporate brand shooting, let's say. But I just never sort of got around to it. But maybe now with this sort of downtime, having a bit more time in my hands, I might look into it a bit more.
So what have you been doing, like talking about downtime and talking about specifically, have you been doing anything specifically to, still be creating? I've talked to a couple of people who are like, I've talked to a couple who are like, I'm busier than ever, others who are like, yeah, if and but, I'm doing here or there, but I'm trying to find things to do, or I'm trying to find ways to create and this and that. So what have you really been kind of quote unquote getting yourself up to during this downtime?
Yeah, it's been a bit of both of what those things that you just said. But I had a few edits that I needed to finish. So actually, in the beginning, I was kind of a bit grateful for the, let's say, a few cancellations and stuff because it gave me time to just finally get through my backlog and everything. But now I'm almost there, and yeah, it's just getting to that stage now where I'm like, yeah, I'm really itching to sort of like make stuff. So I've got a YouTube channel which I'm kind of like focusing on more now than ever. Like I've always posted stuff on there, but it'd always been like really sporadic, like maybe one video every month or something like that. But now I'm thinking, yeah, that could be something that I'll just switch my focus onto and just try to put more videos up on there. Maybe there's more people watching YouTube now than ever. I'm not sure. So that could be a a good avenue. But it's just with all the restrictions and the way that I shoot and the style of shooting that I do, just only be having to be able to stay in the house. It's tough to think of videos that I could put out that I'm really like happy to be making. So yeah, I'd say that's probably been the main thing. Really, the main outlet creatively has just been on the YouTube.
Mhm. No, I mean, I've definitely, personally, I've definitely seen a lot of creators, push their YouTube more and really think about this time as like, okay, well, I kind of neglected my YouTube, or I kind of neglected my own promotion or my own marketing in that respect. So, I definitely think that's a great thing to do. I mean, something which I've found, and something which I started to do, and you were the first of those that I did just before lockdown sort of went into effect, was, for me, I'm always looking for different industries or different ways I can sort of add my skill set to. So it might be, me shooting behind the scenes for you, but that works, the other way around as well. Like for example, if I have a shoot, I will definitely get behind the scenes content filmed for that, and because there's definitely a lot of benefit in doing that. And I think that for you, from someone who I think is looking for other areas to actually use their skill set in, I think reaching out to people in London who are filmmakers, are photographers, are that kind of creative minded, and do very similar things in that respect to you, I think you'll find quite a lot of benefit in doing that, because it will allow you to, one, technically have more clients because you'll have other filmmakers who in turn will become clients of yours eventually because they will want behind the scenes content at some point. One and two, you'll also run into situations where because you already have a relationship with that person, then say for example I need a second shooter in London. There's I've already got people who I already know and trust and know and have worked with before, so I'm more likely to bring them on than just kind of having to go around the freelance agencies and that kind of thing and just take a chance on someone on a job. And I think it works the same both ways in that respect as well. So that would be personally what I looked at before. In regards to what I've been doing and creating, I mean, for me, I always try and create content that's relatable and shareable. So, I've been trying to, specifically in Salisbury anyway, because I'm sort of quote unquote known for what I do. It's more about me sort of keeping my brand name out there now. So through the lockdown my name should be around, so then when people and businesses and people are looking for promotional videos, they're looking for corporate videos, they're looking for interviews, they're looking for whatever it may be, they don't necessarily think of, oh, there's this other guy. They think of me because they've seen my work, they've seen me in the forefront of their mind, in that respect. So I think that's going to be where a lot of people are going to shine more so. And then mixing that in with like trying new things, trying new skills. Personally, I'm looking at aspects that I'm weak on, you know, that I do. Like I found I'm shooting a lot more products. I'm shooting, just naturally through working with brands and businesses. They have products and they want me to take photos of their products. They want me to, they want me to take videos of their products. They want me to help in that process of creating content around them. There will be product shots in there, you know. So for me, something which I've done a lot more recently, and will continue to do in the next couple of weeks, will be creating more product themed stuff. Now it's going to be very specific producty, but it's going to be mainly me trying things out, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, while I have all of this time to experiment. You know, I would rather fail on 4 of the shoots that I do now, so then when it comes to clients, I know exactly what not to do. In that respect. So and I know exactly. Okay, well, we're shooting this product. Okay, we could go this direction. We could go to this direction. And also, I think it's good because and I'm sure you found this as well. When you create, you find solutions to problems that you didn't know existed beforehand. Like, you're like, oh, what about this idea? Then you'll find out, oh, maybe this idea doesn't actually work, but then it triggers another idea. In that process as well. So I think that can be very interesting. I think that some people, I think you'll find when this kind of things die down and things go back to normal, that you'll sort of, there'll be some people who took this as a big holiday, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And
It's very
and
easy to fall
and
into that
and
trap, to be honest, because like I think we've probably always had this like, let's say, self motivation, maybe work ethic, already sort of drilled into us just from what we do. Like nobody really, we're sort of self employed, I guess. Nobody really tells us to wake up at a certain time and we don't have to be in an office and that kind of stuff. So we've always had that kind of, let's say, self discipline to just sort of keep going. But maybe if you're in an office environment and you're used to waking up at a certain time because you have to be at the office at that time and you've got a list of things to do that your boss is giving you to do, and then suddenly you don't have that, somebody telling you what to do, then you're more likely to just think, right, well, okay, now I'm just going to take a big, massive break from people telling me what to do and having to wake up at a certain amount of time and I'm going to watch Netflix, I'm going to do that. And then, yeah, you can do that for a while. But then I think after that, you might start to feel a bit not fulfilled, because that kind of stuff only lasts for a certain amount of time. And then you'll start to feel like, right, I really want to get down and do something. But yeah, I guess with us, like I said, we've always had that kind of feeling of like, right, we need to keep things moving, keep things going. But it's just difficult at the moment because it's like, at the moment, it's a bit like, okay, what? do I do really? Because there's no jobs, there's no like nothing to film. I don't know. So it's just about, yeah, like you said, maybe yeah, I've seen a few people, friends and stuff who popped up and started new YouTube channels, which is a good thing to do at this time because it's one of those things that a lot of people think, oh, it takes time and I don't have the time because I've got this thing to do, I've got that with this client to deal with, and you're so stuck into a mode of working and producing what you produce constantly. But then suddenly, once that's all gone, you then just start to think, right, well, okay, I always wanted to start that YouTube channel. Right, should I just do it now? Should I just do that first video now and then see where it goes? Like maybe it's not as bad as I thought. It kind of forces you to do that. And like you said, the same thing with you. Let's say you've got something that you haven't tried as much, which is product shots, and that's a perfect thing to try now because we can't really interact with other people or shoot other people at the moment. So just shooting products, that's just something that you can work on now, get really good at it, and that might be one of the first things to pop up when we start to relax the isolation. Then people might just start to say like, yeah, we need some product photography and product shots, and start getting back into it that way. And you would have already felt quite confident because you've been practicing at
Mm.
home. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I found anyway. It's I always look for opportunities to say, well, okay, well, where's the weaknesses that I have at the moment,
Mm,
and how can I make them my strengths, or be on the same level as the things I do more hand, right? Because a lot of what I've done has been I normally strive towards things that push me outside my comfort zone.
mm,
So if there's something which I'm like, that doesn't I don't feel 100% confident about doing it, I'll still do it. Because I've found that I grow the most from those things,
yeah.
whatever that thing may be. So whether that's a project, whether that's doing something that I'm, specifically not very good at
Yeah.
or whatever, because the only way you're going to get over those, like, oh, I'm not very good at XYZ,
Mm,
is by doing those things. Oh, if you want to be a web designer,
mm,
okay, then learn the basics of web design.
yeah.
If you want to start making videos, start making videos, etc. and learn as you go, make something, learn from it, make again, make it better, etc. So on, and this kind of leads on to my kind of next question in some ways. And there's kind of two questions, kind of the same here, but um, you know, do you have firstly an action plan for your own business when you come out, or when we come out of lockdown, that you're going to be like, right, okay, so we're out, we can do this, I'm going to do bang 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 bang, bang, right, or not, perhaps. And then secondly, would there be one or two pieces of advice, because I'm sure there's some people who are using this time to really think about what they want to do in their life and what they really want to do, and maybe they're in a 9 to 5 job that they don't exactly like, but they've got money saved away, so they're like, okay, I could probably look at starting a business, or wanting to start a business, or want to start a side hustle, or whatever it may be. What kind of advice would you give to someone who was looking to do that, they've kind of made that decision like within this time, and have possibly even started putting motions in place?
Yeah. Okay. So the first question about the action plan moving forward. So yeah, I'll be honest and just say that's something that I'm constantly, in thinking about like right now because we're still, in amongst it. Really, it's been like 2 months, I guess, and I think is it this Sunday that they're gonna sort of talk about, the news moving forward
There
process,
is
or
there is a roadmap being announced
yeah.
on Sunday. Yeah.
So that will obviously play a big part. But I just think I'm hoping more than anything that there will be some salvation of, like, let's say the weddings, because I've got a lot of stuff booked up for the summer and everything's sort of been cancelled up until about June. So I'm still hoping that there might
Yeah,
possibly,
possibly late summer.
yeah. But I mean, the longer it's going on, yeah, you're right. Like it's seeming less and less likely. I think there's like, I've got a few weddings that are abroad and stuff, and I'm really excited about. But I'm starting to think that they won't happen because obviously, like if you look at what Italy have done, they've shut their borders off for the rest of the year. So another few countries, like I'm supposed to be going to France and Portugal. So if they do the same thing, then obviously those will be gone, and that's extra money gone and stuff like that. But I guess a lot of it, yeah, will just be when I want to get back into shooting and everything, it will just be a hustle of getting on the Facebook and Instagram and the kind of stuff that I used to do in the beginning, like when it was before I had like a regular, let's say, stream of clients who would call me up. It was just about hustling and calling people up and being like, "Do you need video work?" Like that could be the way it goes, and yeah, it would just be that kind of hustle of like finding out maybe local businesses that maybe need video production and trying to get back into it that way. More than anything, like I said, the main thing that I rely on is the income from the weddings that I do. But if that's going to be a write off in terms of this season, then it will have to be like a plan to replace that maybe with some more corporate gigs and yeah, maybe shoots for local businesses. I think that'll be the way that I'll try and go. How about yourself?
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, as I say, I mean, I think that's like from my side anyway. If I was in your position, I would be planning as if those weddings don't exist, right? As in like, obviously we don't know, but I would say I can't imagine like events or like live events or weddings happening this year, really, really at all. I think 2020, 2021, start of that event slash wedding season, sure, right? That's a completely separate conversation. We'll cross that bridge, around Christmas when we know how things are. For me, I'm thinking in my head, is the like second half of my event season, which is normally like November through to like the end of December ish kind of time, gonna happen right now in my head? No idea. I'm assuming it's not going to, but then it's always one of those things where I think you need to plan for the worst but hope for the best. I think that for the best advice I would give to you would be start making an action plan now of contingencies to say, okay, well, what work can I do? What stuff have I shot? Look at your backlog of stuff. What reels could you put together? Could you make a corporate reel? Could you make a wedding reel? Could you make, an overall reel, etc. Then start building connections with people now. Start talking to business owners, start talking about marketing, start making content about marketing, etc. Just start explaining to people why they should be investing in business, why they should be looking at video, why they should be looking at photos, why they should okay, firstly that, and then secondly why they should have you do it, right? Because I'm in a very quote unquote privileged position because there's not a lot of competition in Salisbury. So for me, it's quite easy because I've already established quite a good reputation in Salisbury, I would hope anyway, for what I do. So in most cases, the work is kind of always going to be mine. Not like, oh, it's only going to be mine forever. No, of course not. But because of the steps I'm doing and because of the things I'm doing, I've sort of will continue be in people's minds when it comes to video. So it's an easier thing, but that is going to be a lot harder to do in London because of how big London is. One, two, of how competitive London is, but also from my perspective in regards to London and looking at it from a market perspective, there's also a lot more potential clients in London as well. The pool itself is a lot bigger, so I think there can be. I've talked about this on previous podcasts, but I think trying to work with your competition, your quote unquote competition, as I was saying earlier, is a good thing because I think that you'll pick up stuff from them, they'll pick up stuff from you. You don't always have to necessarily be like, oh, he's stealing my client, or oh, he's stealing this, or that kind of thing. You don't necessarily have to be on bad terms with the people who just so happen to do the same thing as you, because there can be a lot of benefits if you can grow past it and work with those people. In that respect, whether it's your own branding, e.g. like the behind the scenes stuff, or even just simply I have a bigger project, or it would be really useful to have another creative mind here that happens to also be able to do videography and man a camera and etc. Depending on the context of the project, of course. But I think that that's what a lot of what I've been either talking to people about or doing myself has been, what content slash strategies am I putting in place now that will serve me in the future? You know, um, this podcast is a key example. I'm investing time now while I've got time to get, as you know, as I was telling you before we started, I've got about 2 months worth of podcast footage and podcasts. Like, I'm going to do one a week, but I've got 2 months basically. So if lockdown was lifted tomorrow and all my clients came back, I would still have 2 months worth of content in regards to podcasts and stuff, like, so, and the only bottleneck would be me editing them and putting them together, which is always a bottleneck. But my plan is to start getting those ready, because ideally I want to be ahead of myself all the time.
Yeah, it's a smart strategy. That
And
I was watching a video from he's a really popular YouTuber. His name's Matt Divella. Have you heard of him? He did a video about talking about batching stuff, so, and how like that's a more efficient way to live, not just like just all aspects of like life, just if you batch it. So like what you're doing now with batching podcasts, let's say, doing them all and then having like a load to, could be the same thing with recording YouTube videos, for example. Like you set up an area to do your videos and a set to do your videos, and then yeah, you could just reel off a load of them and have quite a few to put out over the months, rather than create a set, do a video, and then come back the next day and do the same thing. So you could just be a lot more efficient in that way. And I think that's a good thing that you've done there with let's say having that sort of 10 podcasts that you can put out over 10 weeks, and have consistently having stuff that you can put out. That's a good strategy as well.
because I think also for me, it's like I want to be putting out consistent podcast content, right? That's valuable. But the thing is that it can be very time consuming to put a podcast together, you know, and to do properly, from like organizing. Okay, if I have someone on, who do I have on? What are we going to talk about? Then actually filming it, then actually editing it, then doing all the graphic work, then getting it ready to go out, etc. That process can take a while. So why do I do it batch? A lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about, yes, it'll be in the context of we're doing it in lockdown, but a lot of the strategies and a lot of the things we talk about will translate. They're not necessarily going to be time sensitive, right? So the only time where I won't try to batch do anything would be something that's specifically time sensitive, right? But that's just what I found works, and it's not necessarily like a catch-all, this is the best thing to do. It's just, for me, I would rather feel like I can sort of, when I can put my foot down on client work and videography and more video production stuff, I know I can do that, because I won't have in my head, oh, I need to find someone to talk to on the podcast, or oh, I need to work out a guest, or I need to work out topics to talk about on the podcast, or oh, I need to schedule that into this week, or etc. I've got this buffer, so I'm not as concerned, because I think if you're going to grow anything, whether it's a podcast, a YouTube channel, social media following, etc., you're never going to get it from doing, oh, I've got 3 episodes, oh, I've got 4. It's not going to be till probably episode 50 or 60 or 70 of this podcast when I'm actually got, where I, in quote unquote, where I want to be with it, in that respect. So, and I think the sooner you understand that, the better you can then start understanding your expectations of where you want to be in the respect to, okay, how did the podcast actually do in comparison to where it could do, right? As well. So, and also then, if you've got that kind of filler content, or like a gap of content, you can also then wait for opportunities to happen a little bit more, in the respect to, like, oh, I have an opportunity to talk to whoever, it may be, I can wait for that opportunity a little bit more to kind of happen, or kind of, appear more so than me trying to force them.
Also, yeah,
In that respect as well.
having that consistency of putting something out, once every week, like a podcast every week, people will start to just see you as someone who's consistent and might be worth following and sharing, your podcast, because you're not someone who's just going to put one out and then you're not going to hear from you for a year or something. There's something coming out consistently every week, they're more likely to come back and listen or invest time into whatever you put out, because they're like, okay, this guy's consistently doing it, so he obviously enjoys doing it, he's passionate, and there's something for me every week. So for sure,
Yeah,
there'll be more
totally.
chance of them coming back. Yeah.
And I also think for me, it's like the way I look at content is the more bits of content I have, so whether that's a piece of video or a podcast or a blog or whatever or an image or whatever the content is, there's more likelihood that a new person is going to find what I do and be invested or be introduced to my brand, because there's like these so many different ways that you can be introduced to my brand. Oh, you might see one of my videos over here, you might see a podcast over here, you might read a blog, you might see an image. It's like, there's all these little elements that will eventually you'll go, okay, well, that was from Bronner Media. Oh, that was from Bronner Media. Oh, okay, who is Bronner Media? You'll get to the point where this guy's around so much, you're like, oh, okay, who actually is he? Or if you put out consistent video content, you go, oh, I guess this guy does video, you know, in that respect as well. Moving a little bit back to advice from people who, they may want to start videography companies or photography companies or something completely different. Do you have any kind of advice that you were given at the start of when you were starting your production company, or when, things that you picked up on the way that you think really help with your ability to be able to run a production company, that people, because for me, I think I try and add, trying to add valuable advice, valuable content in the respect to how did people actually run and stay continuing to run their production companies or their videography companies, or whatever it is they do.
Yeah, I think, yeah, if we're talking about, obviously specifically to myself and the videography business that I started and everything, I think I made me and my business partner, who I was working with at the time, who I'm no longer working with because he lives in another country, but we started a business and we were just really passionate about making videos, whatever it was, music videos, short films, everything like that. And that's what we really wanted to do. And then obviously we were talking to other people, and this was like 5 or 6 years ago, and people were like, yeah, you need to also, show yourself, and you need to be on Twitter, and you need to be on social media. And like, we were never the social media people. Like, we kind of hated all that stuff, and we would barely ever be on anything. I don't even think I had an Instagram back then. So it was like, we didn't like it. We didn't like, people knowing what we were up to and all that. We just wanted to make stuff, put it out, and not necessarily people see that, oh, it was made by, me and Sophie and whatever, and we might have sent it into film festivals and things like that. And yeah, after a while, it was a mistake looking back on it, because I think back then obviously there wasn't as many videography companies as well, let's just say, as there are now. There's so many people that are starting up now, like as videographers, buying a mirrorless Sony and a DJI Ronin, and then starting a company. So I think the thing now more than ever is a piece of advice that I could offer is to, like, let's say, show yourself more, humanize yourself, like kind of what we've been talking about really. It's like, even if you've got a company of 5, 6 people, okay, who are the people in that company? Like, that's what people want to see more and more than ever, that rather than just a bracket umbrella of like, okay, Icky Productions, it's like, okay, who's in that company, like, and what do they do, and maybe find out a little bit about them. And once I think clients see that, they feel a bit more comfortable to hire you, let's say, and they feel like they know you a little bit more. And it does work. Like, it's one of those things where a lot in the beginning I was like, nah, it doesn't make a big difference. Like, if you've got good work, you've got good work. That's it. But I think, yeah, when you're working with clients, even if it's weddings, you're working with a couple. If it's other businesses, small businesses, you're working with people, and you need to show that you're a human that's easy to get along with, and is passionate about what you do, and maybe like talking about all this BTS stuff, which I'm really into now more than ever, because people do watch it, and probably watch it even more than the actual stuff that we produce sometimes, and they'll watch it just to see like how maybe I am as a person, how easy I am to work with, what ideas I come up with, how I problem solve, like all those things. You can see that from behind the scenes. You can see it from our Instagrams, like just our attitudes towards life. And yeah, it just comes back to like humanizing yourself, showing that you're a good person. And that can actually land you, let's say, clients that you want, like clients that fit in with you, which is, and then give you like a, let's say, a long-term relationship with a client, because not only can you provide good video for them, but you get on with them and you work well together. And that's a big part of what clients want as well. Like, let's just take it as simple as a wedding. Quite often, a lot of times, a couple might, hire you over another videographer just because they like you, they feel like they connect with you more and your style fits in with them. So they, you might have pretty much exactly the same sort of work as another person. How are you going to differentiate yourself? Yeah, that couple have seen how you work maybe from your BTS or from your Instagram, and they see like maybe even your sense of humor, and they're like, oh yeah, this guy fits in to what we.
Yeah, so I think that people kind of get more comfortable because, for example, like people who I've never met but invite on the podcast, right? I'm probably more comfortable with them already because that person and I have already been sort of talking digitally, and we've been sort of consuming each other's content, so we sort of know each other, but we don't, you know, in the same way. So it's one of those things where I think that, especially from a wedding situation, I think it's very important because, from my experience, not doing many weddings, if any, but I know that people have said to me, they want the person doing video or photos to really feel like they're not there in some ways, and in their respect to, like, they're just like, oh, one of the party, so to speak. They just so happen to have a camera and they just so happen to know what they're doing, in that respect, to get more genuine. I think that way also you get more genuine reactions as well. It's not that kind of like, we're going to do a lineup, everyone smile, you know you of course they're important. Those stage shots are important, of course, but I think that also some of the most magical shots that, correct me if I'm wrong, and feel free to go into more depth here because you've obviously got more experience in weddings, but I think from my perspective at least, shooting events, you get a lot more genuine shots or genuine real emotion shots when you are sort of, just filming candid moments or getting candid moments,
Yeah,
and
personally,
capturing candid moments.
personally, I agree with that, but I think it goes back to, there are people and clients that I've known maybe from a different culture, who they want their videographer to be in the action and literally telling the couple what to do the whole time, and that's what they want. Like, I've known that through doing, like, let's say, Russian weddings. The Russian people generally, they really want you to sort of step in and direct, which for me just is so strange, because working in British weddings, they want you to be out of the picture most of the time. They want you to sort of be outside looking in. And that's, but then again, that's where it comes to, like, if I would then just put out a video and be like, yeah, that's what I do, you might not get a sense of, okay, how did he achieve that video? He achieved it by either being sort of documentary style or being right there in the action directing. The way you're going to find that out is through, like, let's say you're behind the scenes, or that's the way the couple can then just click on there and be like, right, how did you do it? Oh, he was kind of out of the way. That's not really what we want. We want someone to be more in the action, and then that's how our styles will then fit, because they probably wouldn't hire me because that's not what they're looking for, and I'm also not really comfortable doing that kind of way of shooting, so it wouldn't be a good fit. Whereas a couple that really want sort of more of a documentary style, let's say, like, out of the way, they might check my BTS and be like, oh yeah, actually, yeah, that's more of like the kind of style how we would want our wedding. So yeah, we're more interested in this person. And then if we were to work together, it will just be a good match because we both understand each other and there won't be that sort of conflict. So yeah, just, I think the overall summary of the point that I was trying to make is, a piece of advice for someone who's getting into videography is something that I didn't think of that was that important in the beginning, is that you just need to sort of show yourself more. I used to just think like, why would it? I'm just starting into making video. I'm still learning most of the stuff that I'm learning. Stuff that I'm putting out is not that amazing compared to other people. Why would anybody want to watch or see my face and how I'm doing things and whatever? And what if I'm doing things wrong and people are gonna? But it's not about that. It's about, even if you are doing things wrong, it's like, okay, well, look how this person was doing things wrong in the beginning and the journey that he's come on, and now look how far he's come. And then even that sort of, in that way, you're humanizing yourself to potential clients. So yeah, just even if you're starting up, let's say, and you're still learning, show that journey. I think like just show how you're getting on. It's like in let's say fitness, for example, like when fitness people start their YouTube channels and stuff like that, the most interesting ones are always the ones where the person is a certain way they look and they want to look a different way, and how they went from that to that. People like to see that journey and like how that person may be struggling their way through it, or it's not everything's going perfectly. And yeah, I wish I would have just done that more when I first started, even though it, you know, back then maybe not many people would have watched it, but let's say now where I maybe have a bit more of a following, more people would have now gone back and been like, oh, how was this guy in the beginning? Oh, he wasn't good either. Oh, okay, yeah, no, like that kind of humanize yourself. And then I'm trying to do it a bit more now, more than I was obviously in the beginning, and focus on it a lot more. Hence why, obviously I called you up for the BTS, and we met up as well, and that was another side benefit of doing that. But yeah, I think that would be my biggest tip for people that are specifically looking to start into a videography and photography business, I think.
Mhm. So I think that's a really important point as well, because I don't think a lot of people necessarily correlate between brand awareness content and kind of advertising content, or specifically what the product is. So in your case, the wedding reel, or the wedding product. But also showing the behind the scenes, and but showing the aspects that you probably would miss, or to you would seem really easy to do. Why do I do things this way, and this way? But you've done it that way because you've done it 1,000 times, right? Someone who specifically, I think that's, and again, talking about, showing the journey and showing where you've come from, I think is really interesting, because as you see your own progression day by day by day by day by day, you sort of forget where you came from until you kind of look back on your own videos and go, oh, well, that was really bad. This is why. But at the time, whenever you produce a new video, at least for me anyway, I'm always really, really proud of the latest video I've done. I always think that's hopefully my best work, in the respect to, like, I hope that's the best video I could have put together with the footage I had, or how I shot it, or etc. But then when I come back 6 months later and look at that video, I then see the problems with that video, or the cut is a little bit off, or it's just off the beat, or it's whatever it may be, or the it could be a lot stabler, or oh, why did I shoot it at that focal length, or oh, it's a little bit overexposed, or the color grade's a little bit too strong, or the sound effects don't really work, or whatever. There are 1,000 reasons. But I think that if you're not documenting that, it's going to be very difficult in some ways for you to specifically be able to see that, and be able to sort of really fine tune what you're doing as well. Were have you found that you've had to learn more about business, in the respect of how to run a business, more than this is how I make a video? Because in my perspective, I see them as two separate things. And a lot of videographers I talk to, they focus on, this is how I make a video, this is how I make a video really well, but they a lot of the time neglect, this is how I run a business.
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually, because it's actually something that I really don't like to do. I don't like the business side of it. I just like to. It's a stupid thing, but I just like to. I got into this because I just like to create stuff, and I just like to. Yeah, just like to constantly be filming, to be learning. That's my thing. But you can't just have that. You can't just be like that kind of person, because without the business side of it, you won't have anything to do, you won't have anything to shoot, and you probably won't strive to the places that you can, or be shooting the things that you can, even if like you've got crazy talent and you've got like so much knowledge. Like if you don't know people, you don't network, you don't meet up with people that can get you to a certain place to shoot a certain type of thing that you never thought you could, then what's the point in doing all of it? Like, so yeah, I mean, it's something that I do need to work on a lot more. I always tell myself I get too caught up in just being behind the camera, being behind the in the editing, in the cutting room, and putting stuff together. And I need to just work more on yeah meeting up with people, networking with people, on the one hand, and on the other hand, yeah, like obviously money is important as well. I would say I think I've got myself to a situation where the money is okay in terms of what I want to earn. Like I'm not really in this to be rich or anything. It's more just to be stable, make enough, and just enjoy what I do. That's like my main goal, really. In terms of where I am money wise, I would say it could be better, obviously. But I think then if you go down the road sometimes of focusing, it's a bit of a balancing act, because sometimes if you go down the road too much of focusing on money, then you can start to lose interest in what you're doing, let's say, because you started the whole thing. Well, I started the whole thing in wanting to be creative and wanting to enjoy what I do. If you then start to really, really focus down the business road and making money and getting every single client that you possibly do and trying everything video that you can possibly ever do, you might start to not enjoy it as much and all those things. So, like, yeah, it's a bit of a balancing act on how do you actually get to where you want to be in terms of the stuff that you want to be shooting, making the money that you want to be making, and also still not burn out and enjoy yourself. It's just one of those things that I'm constantly like fine tuning, let's say. Um, I would say before all this sort of COVID stuff happened, I was in a pretty decent place. I could have, I probably wanted to explore the sort of, let's say, working for small businesses aspect a little bit more. That could have been interesting and fun to do, just to sort of cut back on the weddings a bit more and do more of that. But then again, that would be more of an exploring thing to see if it's something that I really, really enjoy doing, compared to the weddings. And if so, then obviously I could start to bring that in. Yeah, so it's just at the moment for me, it's just a constant fine tuning between the creative side and the business side. How about yourself? Are you very business focused?
I mean, I think from at the beginning, I think I was very similar to you in the respect to, I mean, if the creative, I want to get better and better and better at
Yeah,
video, and I want to do this and do that, and that's all I did, right? And I still don't stop doing that for obvious reasons, right? But I think now it's more of a 60-40, possibly 50-50, sort of half and half, sort of balancing
yeah,
act between creating content. How do I want to create that content? How do I get better at creating that content? And then how do I actually do the back end business? How do I work with clients? How do I
yeah,
network? How do I do this? What am I doing to grow, etc.? And for me, it's been very interesting because for probably, I would say, a year now, I've been getting more and more and more interested in the business growth and business development aspects of where my business has actually been going, because by no means am I like up there in regards to video. No, of course
mm,
not, because there's always stuff you can do and there's always stuff you can get better at. But I've got to a point with video where I pretty much know what I can do and I know where I need to get better, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
cool.
And I know the areas that I'm weak in. I know, and I've got plans in place to say, this is why I'm going to shoot this, because it will improve me this. I'm going to do this project for this reason, blah, 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 blah. And I think passively, because of my sort of pushing myself always outside my comfort zone, I think naturally I'll progress in video faster and further because of that.
Yeah,
Because I'm always pushing myself into situations where I'm like, I shouldn't be shooting this because I'm way underqualified, or I've done, I'm always on that little
mm.
edge where I'm always pushing my luck a little bit too
Oh, that's,
much.
yes, that's a
And I
great place to
think
be. Yeah, sure.
and I think for me that's why I'm less focused on the video aspect, as in like obviously I still do it and obviously I'm still experimenting with
Mm,
things, but I think that's why for me I've sort of now pivoted a little bit into more business development and okay, well what is the core that I want Brunner Media to be?
mm,
What are the systems I have in place? What are, and especially in lockdown anyway, and in this process it's given me a very good opportunity to sort of take a step back, look at the brand, look at the business, look at what I'm doing, look at why I'm doing it, and see where those holes are or see where those potential holes could be, to see if I can not necessarily just like put a band-aid over them, but actually physically make those that make those holes or make those weaknesses strong, in the respect to whether that's, oh, I'm weakness when it comes to what if I don't get any clients for 3 months, for example. I'm not making any other forms of income outside of what I'm doing with clients. Okay, that's a weakness,
mm.
right? How do I what are ways I can create revenue outside of what I do with clients, right? One thing, what am I doing to create content that brings in brand awareness for my own stuff? Because I say a lot of the time, or I'm gonna sit there with a business owner and explain why they should be doing all this, but am I really doing everything I should be doing if I have this blueprint that I give to a client, or I hand to a client and say, this is what you should be doing? Am I doing all of those things? And if I'm not, how can I be? And how can I optimize what I'm doing?
Yeah,
You know, and moving back to a little bit about why I'm bulk recording podcasts, it's a mix between that optimizational thing, right? It's where I'm putting in time now, but eventually there'll be a point of diminishing returns where I'll always be ahead of myself
yeah,
in the respect to the content that I'm producing and why I'm producing it. So it will give me more time in the future to then focus on the other aspects of content that I want to build, and also then give me more business development time overall. So it's interesting for me to hear from like different people on where they sit in that balancing act, because I know running a production company can be very difficult in the respect to that balance between, oh, I should be shooting and editing and doing that repeatedly to get better, but I also should be looking at business development,
yeah.
and in that respect as well. In regards to business specifically, is there like any specific thing or like specific advice that you could give to someone who is really looking at the business side as a weak side, on their business, that you've found a lot of return on your time with?
That's a good question.
Like, just to give you some context where you're thinking, like for me, I found focusing on relationships and having a personal connection with people
Yeah,
has been my best return on time,
yeah,
right?
for sure.
Like, like for example, like as I've sort of already mentioned, but like I'll give you like an example which you'll be able to relate to. If you have a behind the scenes shoot in, say that say lockdown gets lifted like in the next
Yeah,
week, right? And then a month later you have a behind the scenes shoot and you've got a choice between like hiring me, bringing me up to film behind the scenes for you,
mm.
or you know, a handful of other people. Who are you more likely to bring onto that behind the scenes shoot?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I'll definitely give you a call, obviously, because we work together and everything went smoothly, and it's just more.
And I
More
also think you also already, or in some ways, the product that you're
yeah,
going to get
exactly. Yeah, and obviously everything
as
went
well, right?
great.
So
So just having that sort of reliability, like okay, we're gonna obviously call up Carlton. He's gonna be there on time or early, if anything, and have all the gear that we need and everything. Yeah, if you do everything in a professional manner, like from start to finish with the client that you have, then keeping that keeping that client, and then obviously they're going to be calling you up all the time because they're really happy to work with you. They're not even going to be thinking about working with anyone else. So yeah, it's a big one, and obviously then you're not spending so much time going around looking for new clients all the time because you're got a few really good ones that are always giving you a ring and providing you with that consistent job. So yeah, that's a great tip that you mentioned.
like that's personally what I found has been the best for like the last say 6 months to a year. And I'm always looking at different sectors of how can I reach out personally to make connections with those industries and with those people in those industries. As I said, towards the beginning, just before lockdown happened, the industry I was starting to focus on was my own industry in the respect to connecting with other filmmakers, connecting with other videographers, to firstly just genuinely interested to see how other people work, right? Because I've been for a long time in my very own bubble. It's like, okay, this is how I do it, this is what I do, this is why I do it, right? But also sometimes I think you can get into the wrong kind of like momentum swing in the respect to like you will only do things your way because you've only done them your way, and you're not going to necessarily be open to seeing another creative shot idea, or seeing like, because something that I see you do may then give me an idea to do something, to take that part and be like, okay, cool, I really like that, in that respect about how to actually do
Oh
it,
yeah, for sure. Collaborating, yeah.
as well.
It's another, if we're talking about, obviously it's not a big business tip or anything, but like just in terms of being better at what you do, like yeah, collaboration is just fantastic. Just seeing, like you said, either it's two things that you can get out of it. One is you'll look at somebody and the way they work and be like, I'm really sure that's not the way I want to do things, but good on that person. But having seen them do it and the way they do it, maybe they're not efficient in the way they shoot or whatever. Maybe it works for them, but you watch them and you think, it's not the way I want to do it. I don't want to be using like cam gimbal. I'm just happy doing it handheld because that's the way I like to do it. And or you might look at that person and be like, oh my word, like that shot I never even thought of. Like that's amazing. Like and then you'll have something to then work on after that. So there's always something that you can get from collaborating with people, like if we're talking, from a creative aspect. But yeah, the things that you mentioned on, on a business level, I think just a big thing as well is obviously like, when you talk about business in general, not just videography and everything, it's like when you start, you're not going to really be making money straight away, or, it's going to be that frustrating time where you're going to be investing a lot, but you might not be making a lot of profit back. And you just have to know that you're doing something. It might not be something that you're passionate about, because I think passion comes from over time when you're actually doing the thing and you realize that, right, I really, really love this. I don't think people really, or not generally, people aren't really passionate about something and they go into the business generally like, well, I mean, I didn't with video. I didn't know that I was passionate about video. I just knew that I liked it. And then over time, I became passionate about it. But yeah, just making sure that you're going into something that you, even though when things might get tough and you might not make money for a while, or, things might not go the way that you want them to, that you'll still be willing to give it a go because you like the thing that you're doing, whatever it is. Maybe it's making cakes or whatever, I don't know. But you like doing that thing. And even if the business side struggles for a while, which you can do, things like this happen, like COVID or recession and everything like that. Things can come along that can make the business side suffer. But generally, if you like the thing that you're doing, you will make it through those times and carry on out the other end and become stronger, if anything. I think the businesses that probably suffer more than anything are the ones that just think, right, my business is taking a hit, the money's not really coming in, I don't want to lose any more. I'm not really that into what we're doing anyway. Let's just call it a day, pack it up. And a lot of those startup businesses probably fail in that sense because they never really liked what they were doing, and maybe they were just in it just for the money, which is always a dangerous route to go down. I think yeah, it has to be that element of the thing that I'm making a business out of is something that I really genuinely like doing, whatever it might be. And you have to ask yourself that
Mm.
question in the beginning when you start. I think that.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that a lot of people, I forget where I read it, but I think it was something that to try and do what you want for a living, if you would only do it for $1, right? Like, would you still do what you're doing now for $1? Most people would say probably not, right? So, for me, when I started, it was the first year was, let's get to the end of the first year. Let's see if I still like it. Let's see if I still want to do it. Let's see if I really want to push it. So I just messed around. I just tried to film as much as possible and build as many connections as I humanly could. On the off chance that maybe a year at the end of that year, I go, yeah, it was fun, but not for me, and I found at the end of that year, that was 2 years ago now, that I wanted it more even than I did at the start of that year, right? So the more I went in, the more I wanted to do it more, and I found that as kind of being a snowball effect in the respect to even now, I probably want it maybe 6, 7 times more than I did at the start of that first year, you know? Um, no, it's the growth. It's my personal growth. It's where I've come from. It's me looking at, okay, well, just from a like completely from video perspective, if I take a video which I had a vision for, that the idea was really good, but I didn't execute on it very well because I was bad at video, and then I take an idea which I executed on now and I put them side by side, I go, wow, right? In the respect to, something for me which I've wanted to do and I've only technically really just achieved. I think that every filmmaker sort of strives to this, is to get a quite serious emotion from a film which they've made, right? Um, those who don't know, at the time of recording this, I've literally just come off the back of releasing a big film, um, around Salisbury in COVID and lockdown, and I think Pav saw it as well. But you know, I've been getting messages, and people have been telling me, this made me cry, or you know, this got me really emotional, or this is really hopeful but really sad, or and for me, that was just a personal project that I was just like, it's just something I want to do to document, right, and to document the process and the time that we're in, mainly from more of a perspective. I want to look back on it in 3, 4, 6, 7 years, but also it was also a mix between, like, I knew it would sort of, because it's kind of very relevant. So I also knew it would be a good way for me to get my brand name out there, but that wasn't the main reason why doing it. Um, but for me, it was very special to know that people were emotionally hit by it enough. Like for me, as an editor and as a video creator, that means I did a good enough job, right? Like that, I think for me, what has been the highlight and will always be the highlight for lockdown for me. Because before that, I had had like, oh yeah, that's a cool video, but it hadn't genuinely made someone cry, right? And it's not something I'm like, oh, that's great, I'm really happy about it. But it shows the power, right? That a video, when it's done right, can have. And I think for me, that's something which I've always wanted to strive for. Like, for me, when a client says that video is perfect, I love it, no matter what they're paying me, that means so much to me, more than anything else. Because even if I was doing it for free, that simple line is worth all of the time and the effort I put into the video. And that's just what I found, and that's just why I think that why I've continued to do what I do, and will continue to do what I do. I don't know whether you found the same, or have a similar situation, or in that respect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like what you just said, it's just that really you just feel really like fulfilled in general. Like in terms of like, okay, yeah, that made a bit of a difference, and that's like what you did with that film. It's like so relevant, and like at this time to put that footage together with the music, the emotional music and everything, and yeah, for people to watch it, and even then, like even in 1 year's time when you watch it back and you'll be like, wow, that was mad, and you documented the time. Um, that's obviously a great thing when it comes in terms of like when I do weddings. That was one of the biggest things, is like, yeah, the money's good and everything. Obviously, you need to keep it going, but like you, at the end of the day, you want the client to really love what you're doing. The client, in this case, obviously being the couple who are going to watch their wedding video for the rest of their life. And you're like, yeah, okay, they got emotional watching it back, and it made a big difference to them. Um, yeah, could be anything. Could be like, even if you just made a video going abroad on your holidays, and you might put it out and people might watch it and be like, wow, like that makes me want to go there, or that just takes me back to when I went there, or if you watch it back yourself and gives you that emotion that you when you were there. So Yeah, videos, it's a powerful thing, and that's, I think, the reason. Obviously, like, one of the big reasons that I got into it is just because you can have that, like, you can, like, give that emotion, let's say, for it. And yeah, exactly, pretty much just what you were saying about that as well, like the about the video that you made.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that that's really important. And I think that's going to be the difference between someone who gets into video or gets into anything for the validation of doing it and then the money of doing it, right? And I think there's some people who see it as quote unquote easy money, right? And or see certain things as easy money just because they see people who are in that field making X amount, Y amount, right? But what they don't get or what they don't understand is how long that person worked to get to where they are and earn what they earn now, but also what they also have done before that. And, what is their life experience? What have they done in that respect as well? So I think that the more business owners or photographers or anyone who does like anything from a creative, so whether it's anything, it could be painting, could be making cupcakes or cakes or whatever, I think some people should take this time and really think, why are you doing what you do, right? Not how much am I going to get paid, why are you doing it? What is the core reason? Because if your core reason is correct, you will continue going through bad times. You'll continue going through recessions, lockdowns, etc. You'll find a way through, right? You'll find a way to still be able to be profitable. You might have to adapt, you might have to change, you might have to work harder, you might have to build different connections, you might have to do this, you might have to do that, but you'll still find a way because you'll be driven to find a way. Because you'll say, well, I don't have an like for me, I don't have an option to fail, right? That's not even an option for me. It's I'm either going to succeed, but it's going to take me time, or I'm going to succeed, or it's going to take me time. For me, that's they're the only options, right? I will not quit. I will not give up. I will not say like there may be a point where I say I've got to where I wanted, and then I want to do something else, right? But that's not the same as I'm going to quit or I'm giving up because it's hard, right? Like for what I think anyway, you know. And I think that the sooner you find something that you feel that way about, it can be anything. It could be playing the piano, it could be helping people towards their fitness goals. It could be literally, it could be anything you can think of on the planet. We're in the time I think now where you can basically make, if there's any small form of demand, you can probably make a profitable business out of it.
Yeah, no,
I would
that's a
say.
big key thing. Like you say, there's so much free information out there now. In terms of, obviously, YouTube's a big one. Like, in terms of learning stuff, that if you did want to start a business in a certain field back 15 years ago, you'd need probably a lot of investment, time, um, business knowledge to get it going, connections. But now, yeah, you can jump online, you can learn loads of stuff, you can put yourself out there, start doing things on weekends, evenings. Obviously, if you've not got too many big family commitments and things like that, to be learning what you want to do slowly, slowly. I mean, that's how I did it. I was just evenings and weekends at the beginning, part time, and I just discovered that if I really enjoy doing this in my free time and creating stuff for free, and if I still enjoy doing it in that environment, like, what's it going to be like when I can do this all the time and get paid for it? Like, it's going to be 10 times better. So I think that's when, like, if you in your spare time enjoy giving motivational talks or something, I don't know, whatever it is, and that's all you think about doing, that's all you want to do, and that's the kind of stuff that you're putting out there, then yeah, I mean, you could create a business out of it. You could, whatever it may be. Like, there's so many valuable tools out there. There's information. There's ways to create a business more than ever these days than, yeah, there's ever been.
Yeah, exactly. And as I say, I think it comes down to your core reason about why you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
Like what because the reality of the fact is you're going to have to put in 50 times more than you think you're going to have to put in to move 1 foot, right? To move 1 foot forward, right? And if anyone says, "Oh, it's easy doing this, or it's easy building this, or it's easy doing that," then they have either got extremely lucky or they're lying.
Mm.
That's it. Because I've seen an image or I've seen a meme about success and that it's a huge iceberg, right? Where most people only see the tip of it, but underneath the water there is sleepless nights. There's 50-hour weeks,
Mm.
and there's just crazy amounts of what sacrifices have you made to get to the point where you are, where you were quote unquote then successful, and what things have you done to get you to the point of where you are now. And I think that in some cases not a lot of people are necessarily, they don't necessarily understand or know that that is going to happen. I know I didn't when I started, that I would have to put in as much as I have, but then as I cared about it more and more and more and more and more, I then wanted to put in more time. I now, you know, I now naturally just want to put in more and more time. And that doesn't mean I work every day, all day.
Mm.
No, everyone has down days. Everyone has bad days. I have no motivation to do this, that, whatever. You know, but I think overall, as long as you're making progress in the same direction for a long enough period of time, then you will build to the point where you can do it full time. It might take you 4 years, but you know you'll still get there. You know, and I think that the sooner people realize what that thing is, then they'll be able to start making that progressive steps towards what they want to do. And people have said, "Oh, I'm insert age here. Is it too late?" No,
Mm.
I don't think so. You know, I I was lucky. I have been very driven to work for myself, so I have done it when I was younger, right?
Mm.
Doesn't mean I couldn't have been in a corporate job and had a corporate job while I was 20, 25, 26, 27, 28,
Mm.
29, 30, and then at 30 I go, probably want to do something with my life now, you
Yeah.
know. I might have been 34, 35, but
Yeah, I think if you do it
could have still been in this
if you do
position.
it in a smart way, I mean, obviously, quit your job without any savings and then go into it, probably not the best idea, and then taking out a massive loan and then going into it, it's probably not the best idea, but if you do things in a smart way, let's say a gradual progression, rather than an all-in approach, you can build it. You can definitely build it up, and like I say, it might take a bit more time because you might have a few. As you get older, you have a few more other commitments that start coming into play. But if you really want to do it, then you just do it.
I think that I think there is a point though where you have to all in. There gets to a point where you have to take some calculated risks and you have to take the kind of gambles, right? For it to work and for you to know, right? There's ways of doing that are safer, like having a pot of money, like saving money, like doing this, doing that, right? Having contingencies in place and then saying, okay, for 6 months, I'm going to try this, right? I'm going to give it my all for 6 months, see where we are, all right? But the thing is, like, I think you can't do it without having some form of risk at some point, because I think that there's a point. I know with me, there was a point where I looked at it and I was like, well, I'm already really running my business full time. I just don't do anything else but work because I was doing it alongside something else. So I was like, well, why don't I just do it full time, right? And why don't I just make that decision? And why don't I just go full time? And yeah, that was calculated. It was a calculated risk, right? That's I think the key difference is the difference between a risk and a calculated risk. For me, a calculated risk is, yes, this could go horribly wrong, but I have contingencies in plan where I'm not going to fall that far if it does. But it also has the potential to be the reason why I'm able to do what I do full time, or be able to make whatever the metric you want to talk about is in regards to success. And then there's just what I would argue is a stupid decision, like what you said as well, that doesn't always necessarily correlate into bad decisions. It's just a lot more risky and the stakes are a lot higher, right? Like leaving your job without any savings, for example. Um, if it goes wrong, it can go badly wrong, right? And it can go badly wrong quickly. Um, you know, starting to keep trying to get debt to as low as possible or non-existent and then build up savings gives you a buffer, right? Especially gives you a buffer in times like right now, for example. And I think that people who had that buffer are now kind of in a lot more comfortable position than say someone who didn't, right? Because then they're able to use this time to really think to themselves, firstly, what am I doing? Secondly, how am I doing it? And thirdly, what do I actually want to do? Right. And then they can actually make those steps towards what they want to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I mean, there's people out there on the flip side that obviously they might not agree with that, and they might not work to the thing of, oh, I need to have a safety net before I start. There's some people that just like to dive straight off the big diving board straight up, and that's the thing that pushes them, because otherwise they don't get otherwise they don't feel like not having a safety net is the thing that really pushes them, if that makes sense. It's almost that feeling of like, I have to do it now. Like there's no other choice, so I'm gonna give it my all.
I have to
Sink or
survive
swim
because
type thing.
I'm screwed otherwise, right?
Yeah, exactly. There are people out there that think on that, are successful in that way as well, because they just think like, right, well, I've quit my job. That's it. I'm starting this business. I'm going to go out, get as many clients as I can. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to beg, do whatever I can until I get, you know, to a successful or to a manageable situation in terms of the business, and that's the way they like to work. And there's other people that just want to know that they have a nice pot of money to sit on. They can gradually do this, and this, and feel have that comfort inside them. Similar to what you said about the comfort zone thing. Like some people like to stay within the comfort zone and gradually improve that way, and some people like to just step straight out of their comfort. I'm completely not comfortable here with the amount of money I have and the loan that I've taken, but that's what's pushing me to be successful and make my business successful.
Yeah, no, no, I didn't agree with that, but I think I think in reality it's actually going to be the middle ground, right? Somewhere in the middle there, right? I don't think there's really going to be an extreme on either end, but I think that there's actually going to be a middle ground where, because there's always going to be somewhat of risk, and this is what I mean by like a calculated risk in the respect to like, I think that's definitely a driving factor. And for me, it was like, well, I've only got this amount of money, and the only way I'm going to earn any more is by actually earning it, right? Through what I do. So that was definitely a metric for me to really motivate myself. But I think after a while of you been doing it, you sort of adapt to this new change in the respect to like, right, okay, so now in your own head, you're like, well, this is the only way I'm going to make money, right? So then you start thinking how the other ways I could make money, or etc., or what other things could I do, and then you kind of, I think, step beyond specifically, just trading time for money, which there is only a certain amount of, I won't go too deep into economics, but eventually you want to get to the point where your money works for you, right? So, but there's many ways of doing that, and depending on where you feel you are at that time will then depend on how you do it. And a lot of what our trade is one, trading time for money, but also developing content that I see as an asset that then will gain me money passively, whether that's through AdSense, whether that's through brand awareness, whether that's through a client finding a video I made a year ago, or watching even this podcast, for example. There might be something which really really translates with a client, and then they might reach out to you or I in a year, say, oh, I saw your podcast that you did with Colton. Oh, I really loved how you talked about weddings. We have a wedding coming up. Do you still do weddings? Blah, 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 right? So for me, and we will wrap up here because I'm aware of the time, but I think that's important, and I think that's an understanding where you are in the respect to like what personal sacrifices and personal risks are you willing to take for the sake of what this is, right? Whatever that is. So again, I think the first thing for most people would be decide what that thing is, try it for a bit, and then if you are willing to make sacrifices and make risks and take risks for that, for the possible payoff of being able to do what you love for a living, then you will choose when that time is right, but don't say, it got to a point with me where I was like, well, I would never have made the leap if I didn't say, right, in 1 year from today, I'm going to make this jump, whether I'm ready or not, right? Because it would always be, oh, I'll do it in a month. Oh, I'll do it in 2 months. Oh, I'll do it when I've got X, Y, Z, right? So if you say, I have a year to prepare, right? And then on this date, I'm resigning, for example, right? No matter what happens, on this date, I'm resigning, right? And on this date, it will be my last day. And then from that date to this date, I'm going to do my best to make this work, right? As a business and as a product and as a way to make a living, right? And then you take that and say, okay, well, how close was I? Did I make the leap too soon, etc. And then you can really look back and then sort of look at your finances and look in some ways as well and say, what do I do now? What's the next step now that I can, and even if you say did take the jump too early into full time, for example, so you didn't have the clients or the clients dried up or the work dried up, you would learn so much in that time. I always think it's beneficial to do as long as you can do it. Again, it's going to come back to like how much risk is actually involved, and if everything went badly wrong, how badly either financially or etc. are you going to be in it, and is it something you can recover from within a period of time, right? Like, would it be like a comfortable or on the edge of a comfort zone decision, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, that's a very personal decision. I think that's something which a lot of people are scared to ask because they are scared to know that what they're doing isn't necessarily what they would wish they were doing or were doing, or they get to a point in their life where their commitments outweigh the option of doing that, right? In that respect, just because whether that's finance or family or etc., priorities will shift in the respect to my priority is now with my family, not necessarily about me progressing my dreams.
Yeah, that's
In that
completely
respect.
understandable as well. So yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you making sure or making clear to yourself that at the time when you don't have that, and that isn't, I don't have a family. Okay, I can actually make this decision. I would rather make this decision and find out that I'm going to fall on my face than not do it at all, because then I'll be asking, what if I had done, right? In 3 years, in 4, I'll be saying, what could I have been? What could have I achieved if I had just making that decision? That's personally part of the reason why I came to the decision of going full time personally. I'm not sure whether you had a similar kind of lead up in that respect. Is there anything else that you wanted to cover, talk about, go over, etc. before we end up?
No, just how are you doing in general with everything? Like, are you feeling okay? Everything?
I mean, I think for me, it's been very, very the same in the respect of like everyone has good days and bad days, right? Like motivation wise and the amount of work they get done. Like yesterday was a really good work day. Today, not so much. Um, you know, but I think that's normal, and I think that's okay because, you know, I've said this before, and I'm sure I'll say it again. But it's one of those things where, at the moment, and I'm sure you found this as well, where this is a time where we don't know how to feel, right? Because this isn't something we've gone through in the modern age, or really in a very, very long time. And also, the world was very different when we did have to have lockdown before, and we did were having to self-isolate before, and it was very different. When we look at history, it's been the world is very different now. So
Just a lot. It's just
it
all the
could,
uncertainty, I think, isn't it? It's very just not knowing. We're usually, so used to being told like, okay, this is happening, that's happening on this date, that's going to happen. At the moment, it's just like, right, we just don't know. Don't know how long it's going to be until things get back to normal. Don't know how the world's going to react in terms of economy, or don't know how many more people are going to die. Like, so yeah, not to get too downbeat about things, but it's just, yeah, it's just about the uncertainty, isn't it? At the moment, that's kind of making people feel uncomfortable, I would say, more than anything. But it's just, I think it's just any advice that obviously like I could give. It's just like a day by day thing. Just try and keep yourself busy and just take it next day by next day. And who knows? Hopefully, one day they might announce something big that will make everyone really happy, and that will mean that we will then start to appreciate life more than we ever have done, just because of what we've been through.
well, well, yeah. I mean, I think that's definitely true. I mean, I think a lot of people are going to definitely appreciate stuff that they didn't
Things
before
that
or
they
didn't
took for
as
granted,
much.
just things like going for a coffee. I've said this to you, I think, before. Just yeah, meeting up with someone for a coffee, like you just be like, oh, can I be bothered to go? Now you're going to just be snapping at every opportunity to meet up with someone out and about, be social, because we've gone through this time where we've actually not been able to even see our own families. So yeah, it's mental, but
Yeah, exactly. But I think that for me, I mean, something which was like, I don't know whether you've listened to the third episode of the podcast, but in that episode, I sort of talk about a little bit about how my March was and how the start of lockdown was for me. I think I personally got hit really hard at the start, and then I'm now coming back out of it, and I'm now like got the mindset of, okay, I'm gonna come out of this stronger. That's professionally and personally. But I think that everyone will have been hit by it at different times, and will have been or not hit by it at all, or in some cases, I think some people will also have really used this time, as I say, to try to diversify what they're doing, as a I think in some cases also as a wake up call to really see what did they value in life, what did they really care about, what was important to them that they may have took for granted, or they may have, especially if, God forbid, they did lose someone to COVID, or they have lost someone who's lost someone um to it as well. I think that those connections you have with people will be a lot stronger, especially the ones that, you know the friendships you kept, or the people who checked in on each other, and the community, and whether that's like filmmaking community, or in my case Salisbury community, or in your case London community. I think that those communities overall will be a lot stronger as well, because I think that they will sort of always be looking out. Before the lockdown happened and most places were still open, I myself, as an independent business, also went round to the other independent businesses, some being clients, some being not, just to check in. Not because I wanted to buy anything, not because of anything, just to say, how are you, how are you feeling, how's business, this and that, you know. And also I think that people will take the kind of, in some ways, the independent traders and the independent businesses that are going to struggle through this. I think that a lot of people will hopefully, instead of spending at a chain or etc. I mean, of course, you still need to, because they still need to exist as well. But I think that, if it was a choice between, oh, there's a bigger florist and a smaller florist, okay, let's support the smaller florist because they probably have been hit harder by this, or etc. in that respect as well. So I think it's definitely going to be a situation that a lot of people will come out of a lot weaker. But I also think that there'll be a percentage of people, especially business people, and people who will come out of it a lot stronger. And I hope that I will be one of the stronger ones. And whether that's a situation where, I've practiced taking products, or I practice doing X, Y, and Z, or I know exactly all the weaknesses in my business and I've put these plans in place to make sure it happens, or I have, 6, 7 personal projects ready to go and planned and ready. It's just, and whatever that actually ends up being, will I think be what I think will be good, because I think that a lot of people will get, as you said earlier, I think that some of it will use it as a like kind of relaxed time, and in that respect, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're like quote unquote a workaholic in that respect. But I think that it's also going to allow people to really take a step back and really understand where they are in comparison to where they want to be, right? And even possibly also understand how do they go from where they are to where they want to be, and what are those steps in between, you know? And that's how I'm seeing it. Um, and I think that a lot of people are seeing the same.
Yeah, for sure. It's just been one of those things that like it's weird that like the whole world is just going through the same thing. Like how often does that ever happen? Like everybody is just like a common subject between everybody now. Like in the whole world is like talking about one thing. And generally, yeah, I'd like to just think that people are more, you know, more than ever, like, you put aside all the other petty stuff that you would normally think about and have issues with other people, and just be like, look, we're all in the same boat now. Like, it doesn't matter what part of the world you're from, what economic situation you're in, like whatever, we're all in the same boat. We can't see anyone. We all have to be in our house. We're all trying to get over a pandemic. And it's just one of those things that's never, like people socially, we've never been connected by one thing like this. I don't think ever. I can't really imagine it. Maybe world wars and stuff. Obviously, that affects people, but yeah, like this is just something that we all have in common. We all have to try and help each other to get through, and maybe that's like when we do come out of it, at least for a while, we might just all start to be a bit more of a happier planet in terms of just being like grateful for everything that we used to take for granted, and helping each other and all that kind of stuff just might. And the environment's getting better. Apparently, the world overall is healing. Apparently, so that's another good positive to take out of it, if there is anything.
Yeah, exactly. And as I say, I think that this will change. Well, I mean, I hope anyway. This will change the majority of the world for the better, in the respect to this could be something simple to say a industry that's like, no, you couldn't possibly work from home. How could you possibly work from home? Well, now you're forced into working from home. So, how do those trades and how do those industries actually adapt to that? And what cost saving message or time saving message measures actually go into, maybe you should work from home. Maybe we should do meetings online. Maybe we should have conference calls online. Maybe we can actually do all our presentations online, And I think that with a bit of infrastructure, like investment, whether that's you upgrade your mic or you upgrade your camera at your office to do presentations online, etc. I think, excuse me, there'll be definitely opportunities for that to happen. But also I think from just like moving it closer to what we do, I think it will also be allow businesses and such to really be open to the concept of having online content more, doing things more virtually, doing tours virtually, etc. Especially right now. And also I think moving out of it as well will be something which I think a lot more businesses will be open to, because they will have seen the weaknesses that they had whilst the pandemic was there. While they're not really able to talk to their clients, they don't really have, or their customers as much, because they didn't have the content there, or etc. In that respect. So I think that videographers overall will only benefit, and I think the ones that are able to adapt and able to add more value to businesses long term will be the ones that are more successful. Of course, there'll be ones that don't make it, sadly. But you know, how well were they really doing if they didn't get through it, right? What were they? Were they specifically being lazy? Were they specifically comfortable? Were they specifically not, specifically trying to grow, specifically trying to always push the boundaries? Like for me, I'm always trying to make sure that what I do is better than what I did yesterday, or the last video, as I said before, the last video I did should be worse than the one I just put out, right? Or the one I just finished, or the one I'm planning to build, or etc. In that respect. And I think that it should. That's not even necessarily meaning like on a technical level. It might just be, oh, the message really hit home harder on that video. Okay, well, what other factors about why that did? In that respect. But yeah, I think we'll end it off there. Because this was a longer one, but no, it was good. It was good. So
That was very good, man. Thanks
no
for having
worries.
me.
So I will, as always, link Pav's information in the description box down below. Those who are interested, who would like to see more of his work and etc. like that, feel free to head over to his Instagram and other related channels and such as that. And I'm sure there will be other crossover in the future as well, whether that's behind the scenes shooting or collaborative opportunities in some way or another. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Pav. And yeah, anything you would like to mention?
No, that's it, mate. Just thanks for having me, and cheers. Stay safe.
So I hope you guys did enjoy that interview. It was really, really good to have Pav come on. So if Pav is rewatching his interview and is at this point, thank you so much for coming on, buddy. It was great talking to you. And yeah, I hope people, the audience or people who are listening, have taken some value from this podcast specifically. So next week, you'll join me once again, same time, same place for the same podcast with a different guest this time. It's going to be an interesting guest. We're going to be interviewing one of my more longer term clients, I would say. I think we've worked together for just over a year and a half now, I think I would say. Obviously put a little bit on hold by COVID at the time of recording, and also for this outro, and also time of recording for that interview as well. But I think that'll be a really, really interesting episode to listen to, so I look forward to sharing that one with you. Have a wonderful week, and there's another video going live on Wednesday that should be an interesting one if you're more into visual and stuff like that. That'll be going out at 6 p.m. as well. So if you did enjoy this interview, make sure to leave it a like. I'd love to hear what you think in the comments down below, and make sure to be subscribed so you don't miss next week's episode. And I'll see you